Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The glass snapped in Ethan's hand and wine leapt. I lunged too late and caught only her gasp. Maura jerked back, dress clinging and ruined in seconds. I'm Danielle, 33, and the room stopped hard. Fix it, her voice cut like a fire alarm. Napkins appeared, wrists flashing, people pretending not to stare. Ethan's mouth worked, apology trapped behind shock and heat. I felt my chest hammer because this was our night. He reached toward her dress, then froze mid-motion. Maura slapped his wrist down without looking up. Back up, she breathed through her teeth, eyes on me. She wanted action, not comfort, and right now. The planner rushed in with a firm step. Powder room, she tugged Maura's elbow and pivoted. Maura locked eyes with me, no mercy in them. Handle him, she said, and the door swallowed her. Ethan dragged a sleeve across his cheek once. I tripped, he breathed, voice catching on the word. The music pushed on like nothing had detonated nearby. My throat felt narrow because we weren't done yet. Maura's mother watched from the arch, arms folded tight. Her stare scraped me, not him, like a verdict. She mouthed careless and turned away with practiced calm. I swallowed rage because I needed both hands free. I pulled Ethan toward the service corridor at speed. He stumbled, then steadied, jaw clenched against humiliation. Look at me, I said, forcing quiet into place. His eyes brimmed and a truth hovered unspoken. What happened before you tripped? I asked without blinking. He blinked hard and shook his head once. Just slipped, he stared past me like a danger. He was hiding something and I felt it grind. We hit the corridor and air cooled fast. A busser brushed by with a tray held high. Ethan flinched and pressed against the wall on instinct. Too jumpy for a clumsy step, which smelled wrong. I stepped back into the main hall and scanned. Maura reappeared, dressed darker but controlled and fierce. Her hand lifted, a small command, a simple threat. Get him out, she said, and my ribs tightened. Give me 5 minutes, I kept my voice even. Her jaw clicked, a tiny metronome for disaster. 2, she held up fingers, eyes flat and bright. The countdown started, and everything narrowed to choices. I walked the spill path, careful not to stare. The stain line broke, then started again, a foot left. No dropped glass shards in the first pool at all. My skin prickled because the story didn't track. At the bar, the bandleader watched me approach. Need a slow song, he offered, reading pure chaos. Hold it, I cut him off with a palm. If the room softened, truth would blur with it. I turned and caught Maura's sister near the dais. She smiled small, too calm, hands folded like prayer. Everything okay? She asked, voice buttered for guests. Her eyes never touched Ethan, which rang loud. Back in the corridor, Ethan gripped his wrist hard. The glass didn't break, he muttered, focusing on pain. He finally met my eyes and didn't look away. Something bumped me first, he whispered, and fear bloomed. Who touched you? My words hit like a slap. He glanced toward the hall, then away, then back. I didn't see, he chewed the inside of his cheek. I didn't buy it, and he knew I didn't. The planner slid by and avoided my look. Photos in 2 minutes, she said, not slowing down. Maura stood framed in the doorway like a deadline. If I stalled, this night would crack down the middle. I pressed Ethan's shoulder and felt the tremor. We'll clear this, I said, because retreat kills trust. He nodded once, then stared at the floor again. Silence pressed in and my clock kept bleeding seconds. I walked straight to the venue manager's station. He reached for a key and paused at my face. Security feed, I said, keeping my voice level. Maura's heels clicked closer and I didn't turn. I stepped between Maura and Ethan, palms up, blocking the shortest path. 2 minutes, she reminded me, tapping her wrist once. Then watch me act, I answered, and she held my stare. Her silence pinned me in place like a warning. I steered Ethan toward the office door fast. The manager hovered there with a key lanyard. Cameras, I said, keeping my jaw locked. He hesitated, reading the storm spreading behind me. The groomsman drifted close with a hopeful grin. Photos, he chirped, already motioning for the group. Hold them, I cut in, not taking my eyes off the lock. We needed proof, not poses, or this night collapsed. Inside the office, the screen woke and hummed. The manager scrolled through squares with jittery fingers. Lobby, bar, dais, corridor, he muttered, scanning each corner. Hall by the head table, I pointed, pulse climbing hard. The corridor view appeared with a timestamp pulsing. Ethan hovered behind me, arms folded across his chest. A shadow slid along the frame, shoulder height, quick and close. Then the feed jumped and my stomach lurched. Playback stuttering. The manager frowned at the monitor. Try earlier, I said, grinding the word out. We reversed 10 seconds and let it run. A hand entered the edge, ring flashing, then vanished. Again, I said, leaning until my forehead nearly touched glass. The clip looped hand, shoulder, micro shove, whine reacting like a trap. Ethan sucked air through his teeth and stepped back. I could feel the choice forming, heavy and near. The door clicked, and Mara filled the threshold like a verdict. Her gaze dropped to the screen, then rose to me. You promised minutes, she reminded, voice almost level. Decide, she added, and the word burned. Someone nudged him, I said, keeping my tone steady. Someone in that hallway right before the spill. She didn't blink, which told me she already suspected something. Accident or not, he leaves, she replied, unmoved. Ethan cleared his throat and rolled his wrist once. There's something on my jacket, he murmured, touching the lapel. A dark streak smeared under his thumb and caught my eye. Sharp scent hit, not wine, more like kitchen heat. I raised it to the manager, who leaned in close. Sauce from the canapes, he guessed, uncertain and squinting. Can a smear like that come from a shoulder bump? He nodded slowly, then looked toward the hall. Mara shifted, nails pressing into her palms. Your proof changes nothing tonight, she said, breath tight. If he stays, we break the night open in front of everyone. That line hit me like a triggered alarm. I weighed her threat and stared at the screen. The hand with the ring flashed again on loop. I knew that ring, but naming it would ignite a war. I bit it back because timing decides everything. I stepped past Mara and into the hallway. Her sister stood near the dais chatting with two guests. She saw me coming and adjusted her cuff once. That motion matched the hand on the footage too cleanly. Quick word, I said, stopping within arm's reach. She smiled at the guests, then let them drift off. What's the emergency? She asked, tone smooth and unbothered. Your bracelet touched Ethan earlier, I replied, watching her eyes. A muscle jumped in her cheek, then vanished. I never went near him, she answered, voice calm. Then show me your wrist, I said, holding mine up. A thin scrape marked her bangle, fresh and tacky. She pulled her arm back like from heat. People are watching, she whispered, scanning the room. So help me fix it before the song starts, I said. Tell her you bumped him and we move on. She won't forgive this on her wedding night, she breathed. She will not forgive a lie either, I countered. I tilted my head toward the office with the feed. Her eyes flicked there then back, calculating angles. Mara approached, shoulders squared for impact. What are you two whispering about? Her voice shook the air. Her sister straightened, spine tight, mouth almost brave. No one wanted the first blow, but it was coming. I raised a hand and pointed toward the office. 5 minutes, I said to both, keeping it neutral. See the clip, then choose the next step. Mara stared, then nodded once, barely more than a breath. Ethan lingered near the doorway with his stained lapel. He met my eyes, then looked down, shame crushing him. I touched his shoulder and felt the tremor again. I was done abandoning people to save appearances. We filed into the office like a jury. The manager cleared the desk, then hit play on the feed. The hand crossed the frame, the shove landed, the wine launched. No one spoke, which felt louder than shouting. Mara's chest rose once, then held steady. Her sister lifted her chin and tried for control. I brushed him, she offered, voice thin and careful. Brushed is not what the footage shows, I answered. The manager dragged the slider frame by frame. The push looked undeniable now, small yet decisive. Ethan rubbed his wrist like it still burned. I braced for the demand that would follow. Mara inhaled and set her mouth hard. Tell the band to take a break, she said. Then she turned to me with eyes like flint. We are not done talking about your friend. The music dropped mid-chorus and chatter rose fast. Mara stood square to me, chin lifted, breath measured. Clear the room if you must, she warned without blinking. I felt the floor tilt toward a choice I would own. Her sister hovered by the doorway and flexed her wrist. Ethan kept close to the wall and avoided her gaze. I tasted the risk and made myself step forward. We handle this here, I said, already bracing for fallout. Then act, Mara cut in, palms open but rigid. Your friend stays and we lose tonight on purpose. Heat flushed my neck as guests craned for gossip. I signaled the planner to hold the photos 5 more minutes. The venue tech hustled over with a tablet and earbuds. There's another angle near the kitchen entry, he offered. He tapped twice and pulled up a tighter corridor. Phew. A bracelet glinted, then a firm bump sent liquid flying. Mara didn't flinch, which scared me more than anger. Her sister drew one breath and set her shoulders hard. I brushed past, she murmured, eyes skittering toward the hall. The tablet caught a faint smudge on her sleeve that matched Ethan's lapel. I turned to Ethan and raised a single finger. Do you want to leave to calm things down? He shook his head once and gripped the chair back. For the first time, I heard my own pulse as a drum. Laura's mother arrived with a tight smile and folded arms. Guests are restless, she announced, scanning each of us in turn. We announce a wardrobe change, she suggested, voice cool and unwavering. Mara stared at me as if the room belonged to witnesses. I leaned close enough for her to hear only me. If we bury this now, it never stops later. Her jaw worked once, then settled into something colder. Then make it right without humiliating my family, she breathed. I stepped into the hall and flagged a passing server. Where did that bracelet scrape come from earlier? He showed a fresh welt across his forearm and winced. She rushed by with a tray, clipped my arm, kept going. Maura heard that and closed her eyes for a beat. Her sister looked at the welt and bit her lip. Guests began tapping glasses in a clumsy attempt at fun. Every ping felt like a countdown I could not ignore. I turned back to the sister and pointed to the office. You say it on camera and we move forward. She glanced at Mara and then at the swelling crowd. Only if he leaves after, she whispered, nodding toward Ethan. Ethan straightened and shook his head in open refusal. I'm not walking out of his wedding because of a lie. Mara's mouth tightened at the word and the room tightened with it. I raised both hands to hold the next explosion down. Stop, I said and locked eyes with the sister. You bumped him, you own it now, not later. She hesitated, then lifted her chin like stepping into rain. I pushed him to cut off the speech, she admitted. The planner gasped and fumbled the photo list. Aura blinked once, then again, the hurt finally peeking through. What speech? Her voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. His best man bit, the sister answered, eyes fixed on the floor. I felt the story shift under my feet with that. Something new hummed inside the silence between us all. Ethan swallowed and looked at me as if measuring trust. Mara stared at her sister like waiting for the rest. Why would you block his toast? I pressed, not letting her dodge. She rubbed the bracelet mark and studied the carpet edge. Because he rehearsed something last night, she finally breathed. It wasn't a toast, it was a warning wrapped in jokes. Mara turned to me with sudden, sharp suspicion. What warning? Her words hit hard enough to leave a mark. Ethan shifted, then planted his feet and faced us. He opened his mouth, and everything in me braced for impact. Ethan drew breath and planted his feet like anchoring. I heard her arrange a mute on my mic, he started. Because I caught something earlier that you need to hear. Maura's mouth tightened and the room held its breath. Skip the build-up, I cut in with a hand. He reached into his inside pocket and unfolded a receipt. Vendor desk printed this when I checked timing, he said. Billing contact changed to your in-law 2 hours ago. Maura stepped closer, like challenging the paper itself. That's a temporary hold for payouts, her voice stayed even. Vendors got nervous about delays, so we centralized approvals. The planner flinched behind her, which told me something cracked. I pointed at the timestamp near the bottom line. And who authorized that switch during cocktail hour? The planner lifted her clipboard higher like a shield. Her sister brought your fiancé's phone and asked me to sign. Ethan tapped the receipt with one finger and didn't blink. I asked questions, then the DJ laughed about the mute code. I realized my toast was getting cut mid-sentence tonight. That shove wasn't clumsy, it was a silencer. Maura's gaze flicked to her sister, then back to me. That's money we can sort tomorrow, she said, voice steady. Right now we need peace and he isn't helping. The word tomorrow scraped across my nerves like sand. Why is the account moving without my okay? I asked. Maura's mother edged in with hands folded tight. Vendors want certainty, she offered with practiced calm. You can both sign after the party, no harm. Ethan shook his head slowly and kept his voice low. There's already a transfer queued to her household, he said. Not to a vendor, to personal, he added, eyes on me. My spine went hot, either he lied or we were robbed. I turned to the planner with nowhere left to step. Show me the request log right now. She swiped fast and scrolled while biting her lip. Approval came from Mara's phone, fingerprint Ma. She whispered, Mara reached for the screen and paused halfway there. I didn't touch any payment settings, she said, measured. Her sister's fingers curled around the phone in her clutch. That tiny movement told a longer story than a speech. Unlock it, I said, holding my palm out. Her sister glanced at the guests and then at the exit. Do this in private, she murmured, pulse visible at her throat. Not with half the room watching for blood. We're already in public, I answered without backing up. Fix it here or we burn the rest of the night. She unlocked the screen and opened recent actions with stiff fingers. A fresh transfer request sat there like a live wire. Mara stared at the numbers and went stone still. Cancel it, she told her sister without raising her voice. And reverse the contact switch before desserts, she added, crisp. The sister hesitated, as if waiting for permission from somewhere else. Ethan lifted the receipt again like a flag of truce. I plan to roast him and slide this across, he said. Make it light but make him look at it on stage. That was the warning, not scandal, not gossip. Mara rubbed her temple, then dropped her hand. You chose chaos over honesty, she said toward her sister. The spill, the mute, the switch, all to keep him blind. Each word landed heavy and none of them missed. Her mother stepped forward like stepping into a storm. We protected the event, she insisted, jaw clamped hard. Everything would have unraveled with a bad toast. I felt something colder than anger rise anyway. I will not celebrate while money walks out, I said. Either we fix it now or the room hears the truth. Mara looked at me as if measuring the cost of both. Her answer would set the rest of our lives. She turned to the planner and pointed toward the manager's desk. Call the bank liaison and freeze every pending change. Get confirmations in writing before the next song, she added. Her voice did not shake, which almost scared me more. The sister finally hit cancel and shoved the phone my way. Happy now, she muttered, avoiding everyone's eyes. A second alert surfaced, another transfer scheduled from a backup route. She blanched and tapped again, still one behind the damage. Ethan leaned closer without touching my arm. There are two pathways, he said, breath short but controlled. One through the event account, one through the emergency fund. The second route had my name on it and it stung. Who set up the backup, I asked, keeping volume low. Silence stretched, brittle and dangerous, then snapped. The planner lifted her hand like in school and winced. She did at rehearsal with the mother present, she admitted. Mara closed her eyes for a count, then opened them. End this and we salvage what we can, she said to me. But he leaves after, or we have a different conversation. Her stare told me she meant every inch of it. I looked at Ethan and saw no flinch. He nodded once your call, then stepped a half pace back. I felt the hinge of the night in my throat. Whatever I chose would echo well past the music. I stepped toward the bandstand and raised a palm. Hold the next track, I called, voice flat and clear. Mara watched me like measuring a stranger at her altar. Her sister hovered behind her with that tight, practiced smile. Phone on the table, I told the sister. She placed it down and folded her arms slowly. Speaker on, I told the coordinator who was already dialing. Bank line only, I added, and heads turned our way. A tone clicked, then a calm voice greeted us. Verify pending actions tied to our event accounts. The coordinator rattled details while I kept eyes forward. Guests shifted, the room stretching thin under curiosity and dread. 2 reversals confirmed, the voice reported through tinny air. 1 transfer still queued from a mirrored profile. Flag it, I cut in, never looking away from Mara. Lock both profiles until we approve in person. Done, the voice replied, then asked for a final word. Freeze external changes until tomorrow, I said without blinking. The coordinator ended the call and wiped her thumb. Mara's mother exhaled like she had been underwater too long. I turned to Mara's mother and held calm ground. No more quiet switches, no more side routes tonight. She lifted her chin and tried for authority again. We protected your event, she offered, eyes sliding past mine. You protected control, I answered, keeping my tone even. Your daughter deserves clarity before another step. Mara's gaze flicked between us like tracking a duel. Ethan stayed near the doorway, steady but ready. Her sister reached for the phone again, fast and twitchy. Ethan moved first and planted his hand over it. We are not doing round 3, he said, breath short. The coordinator pulled the device away and tucked it behind her clipboard. Stage or side room, I asked Mara, giving 2L. Ains. Side room, she chose, then angled her head toward the dais. 15 minutes, I told the coordinator, and she nodded once. If I lost those minutes, the rest would detonate anyway. Inside the private lounge, the door clicked like a seal. Laura stood stiff, arms crossed, eyes bright and hard. Her sister leaned against the wall with forced indifference. Their mother clasped a wrist and stared at the carpet. I want the straight line, I said to the sister. You moved funds, muted a mic, and shoved my friend. For what, I asked, because reason decides punishment. Because secrets spread like fire, she answered, voice quiet but sharp. Whose secret, I asked, and let the silence widen. She looked at their mother, not at Mara. Mara saw that and flinched like from sudden cold. The mother didn't move, which told me the answer. Ethan stepped closer, eyes on me, not them. The bandleader joked about a hot mic earlier, he said. He heard 2 guests mention a debt and a deadline. He thought it was wedding gossip. I checked and found switches. Laura's eyes cut back to her mother. What debt, she asked, words landing like stones. Her mother's breath shivered once, then smoothed out. We secured a bridge for an investment, she replied carefully. Not tonight, I said, stopping her before spin. You aimed our accounts at it without consent. All while blaming a spill for chaos you made. She looked through me like I was furniture she disliked. Her sister pushed off the wall and squared up. I nudged him so the toast died early. I thought he'd torch the room to make a point. I panicked and chose force over honesty. Mara pinched the bridge of her nose and breath slow. You risked our wedding to hide a money grab. You risked my marriage to silence his speech. Her voice went low, which hurt more than a shout. I took 2 steps toward Ethan and lowered mine too. You can leave if you want, I won't ask it. He shook his head once and held my stare. I'm not leaving you with this, he answered, steady now. Then we set terms, I said, turning back to them. Public correction, apology to Ethan, control returns to us. Every account, every login, every vendor point. Right now, before the next song hits the room. Their mother's lip curled like this bored her deeply. You will ruin your own celebration with theatrics, she warned. Mara stepped between us and didn't break eye contact with me. Give me 5 minutes with them alone, she said, voice edged like glass. I waited and nodded once, then headed for the door. Ethan moved with me, but I touched his sleeve. Stay, I murmured, and he understood the job. I left them to talk because trust needs air. Outside, the room thrummed with a shaky beat. Guests tried to make small joy from large silence. The coordinator lingered by the speakers holding 2 cue cards. Quick announcement, she asked, fear tucked behind professionalism. I'll do it, I answered and took the mic. Thank you for your patience, I told the crowd. Brief intermission while we reset a couple logistics. We'll be back on the floor in minutes, I promised, buying time. A photographer drifted near and tugged my sleeve lightly. I saw her with 2 phones in the prep room. She used the bride's face to open payments. I snapped the reflection by accident, he added, showing me a frame. The image caught the sister's hand holding Mara's phone. Angle tight, face close, enough for anyone to recognize. I nodded and sent him to the lounge with Ethan. Wait for them to ask, then show it, I told him. The bandleader nudged my elbow and offered a set change. Slow waltz after your return, he said, testing my mood. Give me 2 upbeat tracks, I answered, surprising us both. If the room lifted, the fallout might land softer later. The lounge door opened, and Mara beckoned with 2 fingers. Her sister followed, pale and rigid, with the mother a step back. Ethan stood beside the photographer like a guard at a vault. Decisions, I asked, because every second mattered. I'll correct it on the mic, the sister said, voice frayed. She did not look at me, she looked at Mara. Mara nodded once and turned her gaze to me. Then we dance, she added, staking a claim I could accept. We walked to the stage as the crowd regrouped. I handed the mic to the sister and watched her throat work. I owe the couple an apology, she started, face tight. I caused the spill and the audio issue earlier. She glanced at Ethan and forced herself to continue. I interfered with payments without permission and canceled them. I'm sorry to the couple and to the best man. The room murmured, then stilled, waiting for my cue. I took the mic back and kept it short. Thanks for the grace, we're moving forward with joy. Grab a partner, I said, then returned the mic to the stand. Ethan exhaled like he'd been holding a weight too long. The band punched int. Oh, a crisp rhythm with bright drums. Mara stepped into me and set her hand firm. "We're not done," she whispered under the music. Her breath shook but her spine did not. "I know," I answered and guided her through the turn. We moved like two people who knew the steps and stakes. People cheered, grateful for something simple again. Under that noise, a new line formed inside me. At the edge of the floor, the mother watched. She tried to smile and failed, then adjusted her bracelet. Our eyes met and neither of us looked away. The truce would not hold without guardrails and teeth. Ethan circled once with a cousin, then drifted back. He kept near the stage and scanned the exits. He was on alert now, not for jokes, for threats. I felt safer with him there, and that was new. 2 songs in, the coordinator flashed me a thumbs up. "Everything frozen," she mouthed, then pointed to the office. "Signatures later," she mouthed again, promising clean paperwork. I nodded and focused on the next turn with Mara. She leaned close during the spin and found my ear. "If you keep him with boundaries," she said. "Not as a third vote on our life." I swallowed and knew she was right and also wrong. "We will set rules," I told her between beats. "We start tonight with lines even your family respects." She held my gaze a breath, then pressed closer. "After the cake," she whispered, and that was our bridge. The song ended on a sharp crash and whoops. I raised Mara's hand and kissed her knuckles once. Ethan clapped twice, then looked toward the lounge door. 2 officers in dark suits stood there with the venue lead. My gut tightened because someone had escalated without us. The venue lead approached with an apologetic nod. "Security needs a statement about the attempted transfer." He kept his volume low, but the word transfer traveled anyway. Mara's shoulders drew back, ready for one more fight. I looked at Ethan, then at the officers, then at her sister. "We do this now, quickly and cleanly," I decided out loud. Then we cut the cake and finished the night on our terms. Her sister lifted her hands, palms out, breathing fast. "I'll cooperate," she said, and for once it sounded true. The mother stared at the floor and did not move. The crowd swayed between dance and spectacle, hungry for both. I walked with the officers toward the lounge again. Ethan fell in beside me like he belonged there. Mara matched us step for step without a word. Our wedding kept going and the truth walked with us. The door shut behind us and the officers opened notebooks. "Who initiated the transfer?" the taller one asked without preamble. Her sister lifted a trembling hand, then dropped it halfway. Mara watched me, waiting to see whether I flinched. "Timeline first," I answered, planting my palms on the table. "Change to payout contact during cocktails, 2 queued withdrawals, 1 canceled, 1 flagged." The shorter officer nodded once and turned toward the sister. "Confirm or correct," he prompted, pen steady over the page. I accessed her phone with her face while she touched up, the sister confessed. "I changed the contact and authorized a draft," she added, eyes dull. "Our mother advised me to protect a shortfall before it hit." The mother's shoulders stiffened, but she didn't contradict a word. Ethan leaned against the credenza and kept his gaze on me. "Vendor receipt documents the switch," he offered, lifting the paper. The officer took it and slipped it into a clear sleeve. "Copy for our file, that preserves order if disputes rise." Mara turned to her mother and let silence punish. "You gambled with our event to cover your risk," she said. "You used my name while blaming him for chaos," she added. Every sentence landed and left a mark that wouldn't fade. "We stabilized the evening," her mother countered with brittle poise. "The toast would have aired private matters best left buried." Ethan's jaw set, but he kept distance from the volley. I recognized restraint as the only path through this. "Statement taken," the taller officer said, eyes narrowing. "Do you as hosts want formal charges tonight?" Mara looked at me, asking without words which mountain mattered. I counted the costs and pictured our first morning after. "Not tonight," I decided, keeping my tone firm but calm. "Document everything and release a summary if needed tomorrow. Any further movement on accounts triggers immediate escalation," I added. The officers agreed and requested signatures to bind the note. Her sister scribbled first with a hand that shook. Her mother followed with a smooth, irritated flourish. Ethan paused, then printed his name clean and precise. I signed last and the room exhaled like valves opening. "We still need boundaries," Mara said, turning back to me. "You keep him close, we need rules we both trust." Ethan held my eyes and nodded like he heard everything. I understood that being I was cheap without discipline. The officers stepped out to confer with the venue lead. Music thumped faintly beyond the door like a heartbeat. The photographer hovered and raised 2 fingers for permission. Mara gave a quick nod, and he showed the reflection proof. It captured the sister unlocking with a borrowed face. Angle unforgiving, details impossible to dispute or twist. The officers logged it and returned the phone to the case. Evidence secured, excuses gone, only choices left on the table. The mother moved to the door with a cool smile. "We'll regroup Monday," she declared, trying to reclaim terrain. Mara stepped in front of her and barred the way. "No access to our accounts, our vendors, our calendar," she said. Her mother's jaw flexed, then relaxed into practice charm. "You'll regret cutting out experienced hands," she murmured to both of us. Ethan shifted closer without crowding me, ready if needed. I realized my spine had finally caught up with my vows. We returned to the floor with our faces composed. The band eased into an upbeat track on cue. I took the mic and kept my message crisp. "Thank you for patience, cake in 5, dance in 10. Applause rolled and eased the tightness in my chest. Guests swarmed the dessert table like nothing had happened. Normalcy returned by force of habit and sugar. Under it, the 4 of us arranged the next step. Mara faced Ethan square and opened her hands. "I owe you public respect and private limits," she began. "You stay in our circle with clear distance from decisions," she said. "Personal time is ours, shared time is invited, not assumed." Ethan absorbed it and nodded once, steady and sober. "I will never blindside you again," he answered with care. "I'll keep receipts out of speeches and jokes out of alarms." He reached toward me and stopped until I met him halfway. I clasped his forearm and felt the storm settle. Not peace, not yet, just room to breathe and build. Mara watched that grip and didn't look away. Trust sharpened, not softened, and I welcomed the edge. The coordinator hustled over with a clean checklist. "All holds cleared, logs updated, bank confirms freezes through morning." She lowered her voice and checked our faces for cracks. "We can cut cake now or take one more beat." "One beat," I answered and pulled Mara toward the corridor. We paused where we had argued and nearly broken. I touched the stain on her gown and let it speak. "Not his fault," I said, "not your fault, not mine." Her mouth twitched like a smile might risk too much. "You protected the truth at cost," she whispered. "You also protected him when it would have been easier not to. That tells me who I married, for better or worse." "We will not let your family run our life," I said. "We will not let my loyalty run you over." She nodded once, deal struck, then slid her fingers through mine. We faced the doorway together and stepped back into noise. The sister waited near the stage with eyes swollen. She clutched a folded napkin like it could erase the night. "I'll repay what I tried to take," she murmured. "You'll repay trust first," Mara answered, then turned away. Her mother hovered by the coat check with 2 guests. She laughed at something that wasn't funny at all. We passed without stopping, and she finally read the distance. Control had moved, and she knew it wasn't returning. At the table, the knife lay framed for ceremony. The room chanted our names, eager for tradition. I wrapped my hand over Mara's and felt the tremor. We pressed down together and let the blade find center. Cheering swelled and washed the tension to the edges. Ethan clapped once, then looked toward the exits like a lookout. He caught my eye and dipped his head with quiet relief. The band kicked into something fast and feet hit the floor. Between slices, the venue lead approached and kept it brief. "Report filed, holds active, security posted at the service hallway." "Shout if anything shifts," he added, already moving away. I thanked him and kept my focus on the living moment. Mara fed me a bite and missed my lip on purpose. Laughter broke from us at last, rough and real. Guests relaxed with us and leaned back into joy. I remembered how celebration is work when truth has teeth. We made a slow circle among friends as plates traveled. Hands reached, hugs landed, words blurred into warmth. Ethan drifted near, then gave us space again. He knew his place tonight, and I respected the restraint. The DJ lifted a finger and faded the track. "Final dance for the couple," he called with a grin. Mara stepped close and I wrapped her without hesitation. We moved like strategy and love belonged in one body. She tipped her face to my ear and breathed heat. "You kept your friend, you kept me, now keep your word." "I meant every part," I answered into her hair. "Tomorrow we bolt every door and reset every password." The song dwindled in applause row. "See like a wave." I lifted our joined hands and felt the weight shift. Not heavier, just earned, just ours. Behind the cheers, the officers lingered by the door like a period. I thanked guests and thanked staff and thanked the band. Then I caught Ethan's sleeve and pulled him aside. Go home before they try something else, I told him quietly. He hesitated, then agreed, and tapped 2 fingers over his heart. Laura watched him leave and made sure I saw her watching. No jealousy, just terms, just the outline of a new map. I nodded once and she nodded back, pact sealed. We returned to our circle and let people close around us. When I think about that night, I remember the cut. Not the cake, the decision, the downward pressure we shared. We carved through lies and saved what still mattered. The blade flashed once more as we lifted it free.